There we go. All right, a little double upload action today. I was gonna post yesterday's video at like 10 o'clock at night, and the way that it works is depending on how, if somebody, I don't know, you ever hear of Linus Tech Tips? Right? If you have, you would know that their whole business model is making like reviews on basically every piece of like computer, monitor, like any kind of gaming computer kind of techie stuff. And the guys have like the most insane computers that will render like an 8K video in like minutes. I might have to up my game because that would actually be a legitimate upgrade. But sit, edit, takes like 30 minutes to load because I've been recording some of these in 8K. And then, like, once you hit upload on YouTube, you can just let it go. It's fine, you know. But you have to manually hit publish and make the video public on your phone. And I fell asleep before I could do that. So technically, today's upload was at like 6 in the morning when I woke up and thought to myself, shit, I forgot to hit post. But a little double upload today. And then I have got to go to the grocery store later tonight. So plan will be to record that. But I have a very bad habit of saying I'm going to do that, and then I don't. And I just kind of keep eating scraps. Like, not scraps, but, you know, I've got some canned chicken and a bunch of ground beef in the fridge that's still left over from my last trip. So it's like, I can just kind of make do. But no, that'll be the plan. So breakfast this morning, and I hadn't eaten it. I've really never even tried cream of rice before now, but Raw is coming out with a whole line of flavors. My favorite one is not released yet, so that's once that's kind of launched, that's really going to be the one I talk about the most. But there's a few that are just kind of baseline sweet. If you're into chocolate, there's a ton of like kind of chocolatey sort of fudge ones, but really it's just this powdered rice. So 120 grams mixed with 400 grams of water, and then about 25 grams of brown sugar. Stir until it doesn't dissolve, right? What's going to happen is it's going to stay on the bottom of your cup or bowl or whatever you're using. Microwave 30 seconds, stir, 30 seconds, stir, 30 seconds, stir. And if you just left it in the microwave for like 5 minutes, it's not going to completely absorb all the water, and then you're going to have like a really like just unevenly cooked cream of rice. So it's a little bit time intensive in the sense that you do have to sit there and kind of baby it, but honestly it's kind of freaking worth it. But then at the end of it, your freaking big ass bowl of cream of rice is boiling hot. That's where you add frozen fruit. So I add like 150 grams of frozen blueberries, mix until really mix until purple, because when the blueberries are melting, it basically changes the whole thing's color. And then you got, at least I had this morning, about 160 grams of carbs instantly, not instantly, but pretty quickly disappeared off of, off my freaking kitchen counter. So if you've got a hard time grubbing, I would say cream of rice may be a little bit of a trick. Kind of just because I wouldn't say it's the densest carb. I'd say technically sugar is the densest carb because there is nothing else. It's just straight up, sucrose or whatever, kind of sugar it is. But out of everything, 100 grams of carbs worth of cream of rice, it's pretty easy to get down, And the main reason that is because it's moist, right? If you're sitting here and you've got white rice cooked left over in the fridge, you know what happens. When it's fresh, it's sweet, but after it sits for a while, it kind of hardens up. It's just not, it just kind of feels like it's a chore to eat a little bit. So if you're already the kind of guy who's got trouble grubbing, well, you don't want any of your meals to be harder to eat than they need to be, So lean towards foods that are a bit more basic and, usually sauced is a good description, right? So if I've got a bunch of ground beef, a bunch of rice, what am I going to do? I'm going to add some things to that and kind of give myself a bit of I don't know. I don't mind the dog food bowl approach. So that's where instead of like having a, plate with my portion of ground beef here and my little scoop of rice here and then sauce over here on the side, just getting I don't even know, maybe like a 3 or 4 cup Pyrex or a big just steel mixing bowl even, and then just mixing everything together. Half pound of ground beef, 150 grams of carbs worth of rice, 15 grams of carbs worth of sugar-free barbecue sauce. Even bulking, usually I'm gonna try to mitigate my my sugar intake. Not all, if I'm really hungry or something and I go to the gas station, maybe I know I'm working out in a little bit, or I know I'm gonna work out later and I can eat this as a snack, I'll hit some Skittles. So it's not as though I'm saying no sugar at all. But if the sugar-free, diet equivalent is a solid substitute, it's like, why not? Just stick with that. Now, if you really have a hard time getting calories in, then the sugar-free option you should never even touch, right? You should be going full calories, full tilt all the time. But, so yeah, 50 grams of protein of ground beef, 150 grams of carbs, of rice, 15 of the barbecue sauce, mixed together. I mean, that was my go-to meal when I was in my first couple of bulks when I was at school, because that's so easy to bring with you. I can throw that in a Tupperware. It's still kind of warm. And then, maybe, usually I'd kind of save it for after class. The only time I'd prep a meal when I was at college was, because, I lived really close to I lived on campus. So I was only if I was really rushing, like a 5-minute bike ride away from class. So usually I didn't have to prep anything because I would just come back to the sort of house that I was living in, cook, eat a meal, and then go back. But on days where I had a class where it was really, even if it was 30 minutes from one class to the next, it's like, what's the point of going home for 10 minutes and then coming back? So that's when I would prep a meal. And just, in between class, pop a squat in one of the, one of the halls or one of the chairs in the hallway, slam a meal, boom, right? You're good. So one more tip in terms of bulking before we actually talk about the plan for the workout is you want to make sure that your CPH, your calories per hour, is on point. Because let's do the math here. Let's say you're 180-pound dude, decently lean, you got visible abs. When you get an arm pump, you got arm veins. So you're killing it. But you're telling yourself, you know what? I want to put some size on. I want to get a little bit heavier, and I'm going to be serious about it. So what do? Well, I'm going to start eating. So let's say, let me think, 180-pound dude, 10-ish, 12-ish% body fat. So, and 5'10", 5'11", so like normal muscle distribution. Yeah, you give that guy 3,500 calories, 3,300 calories, something along those lines, he's going to start gaining weight. Like you couple that with really hard training, solid. So let's say 3,300, actually for math's sake, let's say 3,000, just for, the ease of calculation. But he's got to eat 3,000 calories per day, a normal distribution. So gram of protein per pound of body weight, 180 grams of protein. Fats, about probably a third of that protein value I think is good. So that's all I do. I'm eating 250 grams of protein. Usually I try not to go over more than 80 grams of fat per day and get the rest from carbs. I'm always talking about coming into the gym feeling carbed up, not fattened up, if you kind of follow me. That's its own discussion. But 180 grams of protein, 60 grams of fats, and however many grams of carbs, that adds up to 3,000. So 60 grams of fat is about 500 grams of carbs, or 500 calories. 180 grams of protein is about 700. So 1,200, 1,800. What's 1,800 divided by 4? 450? Yeah, he's got to eat 450 grams of carbs per day. So, evenly distribute all that. Let's say it's now, he's going to wake up at 8 o'clock and he's going to bed at 10. So from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, he's got to go from 0 calories consumed all the way up to his full 3,000, whatever that is. So by the halfway point of the day, right, so that's going to be what, 8, 12, 14, so 7. By 3 o'clock, this guy should have eaten 1,500 calories at least, right? Halfway through the day, he's eaten half his food. So at that rate, by the end of the day, he should be able to hit his 3,000, no problem. Now, when you divide that a little bit further, obviously you're not doing 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day. You're probably doing more like 5-ish. So let's just say 4 for the sake of this. So a quarter of the way through the day, more like a noon, this guy should have eaten at least 750 calories. And if you do the math like that, then you start to think about your day a little bit differently. I'm not really forcing food right now. Like, for me to eat my 3,300, 3,400, I mean, shit, I could probably eat 3,400 calories in one sitting. I mean, if I was really trying, it would be more than I was hungry for. But for me to do it right now, not so much of a challenge. But once it starts to feel like I really have to put food down, right, I want to make sure that halfway through my day, a quarter of the way through my day, I'm a quarter of the way through my calories. So that by the end of it, I can just have a normal sized meal, go to sleep, and repeat, right? I did it. The box that I'm trying to check off in terms of gaining weight, hitting my macros, check, right? I can check it off. What's going to happen is if your rate of calories per hour is too low, you're going to send yourself, for one, either into just a low calorie day. So that day of bulking, when you're looking at it in that context, I mean, it's not failed, but you didn't achieve your goal. So, I mean, fail is kind of a decent word. Or even if you do eat your full calories worth, but you eat like half of it all at once right before you go to bed, like having a really big meal, or you might stay up late trying to catch up on your food. I've done that before. That sends you into this dieting spiral where, sure, you hit your macros for the day, but the next morning, I mean, shit, if I wake up after I just had like, I don't know, 2,500 calories right before bed, I'm still kind of satiated from that food. It's still making me feel residually kind of full because, I mean, that's a pretty substantial amount. So when I wake up in the morning, if you just had a crap ton of food right before bed, you're not going to be so hungry as if you ate your food at a regular pace. So now, you're not super hungry in the morning for your meal, or your sleep was trash. I mean, more like, and your sleep was trash. So now, 8 in the morning, I'm not really feeling like eating something. And then you're back to where you started the day before, where you're not eating your food at a proper rate. So, just something to keep in mind, right? Next time it's around noon, and you got a calorie goal of, 3,000, 4,000, whatever you're eating, even if it's 2,000, and you're maybe on the skinnier side, but you're still working at it, right? If 2,000 is your goal, then by noon, if you're not a quarter of the way through, you got to get something to grub on. I think that's kind of a good rule of thumb. Not like there's any specific rule of like a time like that, but just thinking about it like that, I think helps. So try to make sure your calories per hour is on point for whatever you're aiming for. Same thing when you're dieting. If you're halfway through the day and you've already eaten all your food, well, then you're screwed, just in, a different way. But playing for today with arms, just go freaking nuts, right? I'm not exactly certain if I'm going to do buys or tries first. Maybe a combination of the two, go back and forth between pushdowns and curls. I could definitely see that happening. I don't know. I did biceps first yesterday, or last arm day, and then triceps second, which is kind of interesting because you're almost giving your triceps a little bit of like a cushioning, self-assisted effect. Because when your biceps are fully pumped and like you really hit them, then when you get up in the stretch position for your triceps, your arm is kind of running into itself. So you're almost taking some of the pressure off your tris. So maybe I should go back and forth and make today a tricep first day. Well, either way, I'll be pumped at the end of it. So once I start warming up, I'll get a little bit of a grasp of how I want to break it down. So let's just jump to set number freaking 1. All right. I've warmed up and decided buys will be first in the chopping block. So I think the 70s are about right to start. Okay. Holy shit. Okay. One more of those. Then we'll move on to a new movement. Hey. God. Okay. Holy shit. Okay. All right. Okay, I lied. One more. One friggin' more. All right. Two. Yeah. Okay. Holy shit. All right. Let's totally shift gears and go to a preacher. I think a preacher would be sweet. All right. This is a little much. It's kind of fun for today. I don't know. We'll see how it looks later. But let's totally shift gears from a super hefty set of dumbbell curls over there, or I guess 3 sets, to now a lighter squeezing holding set of preachers. So I'm not going to get a total like complete straight arm stretch. I mean, I'm going down, but maybe not completely perpendicular. That'll be for the next movement. But what I'm really aiming for is a nasty squeeze and hold. So I really want to feel this sort of outer portion of my bicep flex, because as much as I'm just pulling in, I'm also kind of pulling in and like turning my hands inward, if you sort of feel me. But with 150, I think this is about freaking right. But let me pick a different TikTok edit. This one's not working for me. Yeah, there we go. All right, a little sleeve up. Come on. All right. Two. Okay. Oh, shit. One more. Holy crap. All right. Let's take this handle. Same handle, but a different movement. Let's go nuts on some heavy easy bar cable curls. This might even be a drop set. We'll just have to see. Okay. Okay. Holy shit. Okay. All right. Now that begs the question, can I even get anything out of my biceps now? Productively, at least. One more. Then move on to push downs. Okay. All right. Yeah, that was a. Let's move on to triceps, but that was a really good bi session. Let's start with some rope extension. Heavy, but not too heavy. Two more of those. Yeah. 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 Two. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's do some overhead machine now. I can't exactly say why, but my triceps are wrecked. So I think bicep volume will be normal. Tris might get a little bit lower. But it still includes these heavy stack overhead sets. Yeah, man. All right. Two. Two. Yeah. Okay. Come on. All right. Two. Holy crap. All right. Let's do 10 push downs, 10 rope curls, 10 push downs, 10 rope curls, back and forth, probably 3 times. By 3, if I'm not fully pumped, something's wrong. Let's put it like that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's grab the measuring tape. Okay, give me a second, because I have got to grab the measuring tape from way over yonder. Last arm day was 20 inches and a quarter. I can guarantee with certainty today's arm pump will be larger. How do I know that? It's kind of just a feeling sort of thing, you know? So it's not necessarily that I know inch by inch, like I feel this pumped, so that means my pump is this measurement, but you get a pretty good gauge of like just that feeling of swollenness relative to other pumps. Like I think the most relatively pumped I've ever been might have been deeper into an older bulk where I was doing buys and tries supersetted, and by the end of it I felt like I could barely even substantially bend my arm because of how much blood flow it had in them. But yeah, I mean, even just standing with the with the tank, I mean, they're feeling bulbous. So let's start with the left one, and then honestly, yeah, now we'll measure them both. But all right, how does that look? Is that fair? Yes. All right, we're at 19 and a half, not even flexing. Yeah, okay. Well, that's unfortunate. 20 and a quarter, the same as last time. But that's all right. Honestly, you're not really going to grow that much lift by lift. So the fact that it's still solid, that's a good sign for me. Let's make sure this guy's right over the peak. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. All right, same thing. But let's be honest, nobody's walking around with 20 and 3/4 or 20 and a quarter inch arms feeling disappointed. So let's see how we're looking in a pose. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And even just doing this like front lat spread pose, I feel like my triceps are getting like extra stretched because I'm kind of tensing them as I'm hitting it. But yeah, that is freaking solid. So nothing else to say? Let's get back in the car. All right, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And those, yeah, I was going freaking crazy on those sets of curls, especially the cable curls right at the end, because I haven't done the full stack worth of a bicep cable curl with Easy Bar for, I don't even know how long. It's definitely been a while. So yeah, there was a little swing, you know, a little bit of forearm engagement for sure. So not like a complete only bicep isolated movement like those preacher curls were, but I don't think that took away from the workout at all. You know, I just pinned a comment on the last video where the basic gist of it was too much weight, too little volume. And to that, I guess I'm kind of curious. What do we think is the right amount of volume? You know, and I'm biased to think that what I'm doing right now is right, because everything that I've kind of learned over the course of my whole time working out has led me to think that. But I'm not trying to be so one-dimensional as to think that I'm not open to other, other logics and other kind of approaches. You know, but what kind of makes me think that my current volume frequency is about right is the fact that by the time that I come back from my workout for the next one, So now being arms day 0 next to, so I guess, so 0, 1, 2, 3. So on whichever day that I come back to do arms, I forget if it's technically 3 or 4 days. I think 3. 3 full days later. I don't know, something like that. Because it's legs, chest, back, arms, legs, chest, back, arms, kind of indefinitely for now. So that was what? For biceps, 3 sets of dumbbell curls, 2 sets of preachers, 2 sets of 2 sets of those heavy cable curls, and then 1 finisher with the rope. Yeah, so 8-ish, I think. Tries was a little less, but that was kind of because even during my feeler reps in the beginning of warming up, I could tell they had still got a little residual damage. I think probably from my last chest day, so I dialed back the volume a little. But buys especially, because they were fresh, ready to go. Well, if I were to have tried to do another 10 sets and made that like an 18-set workout, I don't think any of that work would be much more productive beyond the point of just making myself more sore, So it's like, where's the line? The way I have been kind of imagining it was if you give yourself a rule that each set that you do, whether it's light squeezing, heavier, to like just straight failure, maybe 8 good reps, 4 partials, something along those lines. As long as you bring it as hard as you can to failure, just about. And by failure, I just mean that you can't really do much more substantial work. So I don't mean you physically can't move an inch, but you know. If that's sort of the rule that you're following, then I think by the time you get to that 8-ish set range, the progression, or let's just say the stimulus effect, if sets are the x-axis and stimulus is the y-axis, I think it looks like this, right? Obviously 0 is going to be 0, we know that, and nobody's doing 50, so I think we can conclude 50 probably isn't the answer. So somewhere between 0 and 50 with my basically twice a week volume, I think is about right. So if I finish at about 8, and I get that kind of feeling of, okay, I've really cooked my biceps, they're as pumped as I can get them, plus to do any more reps, I don't think I'd really be able to get an awesome squeezing contraction. They're just wrecked, they're done, they're cooked. It's like, is more better. But that's under the assumption that each set is taken as far as you can go. So if I were to come into to an arm, there we go, camera overheated. But if I were to come in with the rule of thinking, okay, I'm going to come in for an arm day, and I'm going to do, weight for about 12-ish reps, or essentially just more kind of pulled back volume, where instead of thinking, okay, I'm going to do this set of dumbbell curls, take it as far as I absolutely can on a set-by-set basis, rest, repeat. If instead I came into the gym and said, you know what, let's do a little more Jay Cutler style, not to total failure, but more so just to, I don't want to say uncomfortability, because you can still do a hard set but not go to failure. But let's say instead of doing those 70s for whatever I was doing, and that's a little extra, I definitely like doing some heavier weights. But even if that was a 50-pound set to failure, I think the logic still applies. So if I were to sit and do 40s for 12, maybe lower rest period, more like 30, 45 seconds, repeat, well, then I could probably, or not even could probably, but I would probably feel like I could do more sets, right? I feel like I could do more volume. So now, instead of just coming in and doing, the 8 super hard, crazy sets that I did, it would be more like, maybe 15 or 18 lower volume, lighter squeezing, not all the way to failure sets. And I do think that would also be a good workout. So maybe what I'm kind of getting at here is I should add in some kind of more Cutler style workouts, higher volume, faster sets, just lower, I don't want to say lower intensity, but just leaving a few more reps in reserve. But even the idea of that, it just doesn't really click with me as much. Now, for the sake of a deload day, like if I come in and I can still tell maybe my elbow's a little tender, or my forearm's a little tender or something from overdoing it, or at least just for the sake of changing it up, because this was a pretty heavy arm day, So maybe my next one I go lighter squeezing. I'm still going to want to take all my sets as far as I can, essentially to failure. I'll just do lighter weight with, higher volume. So it's, I guess, obviously this is all jargon. The actual kind of proof is going to be in the pudding of whatever routine that you do and subsequently get results from. But yeah, I'm not trying to say that I've got it all together, but at least I think that the logic behind my training is relatively solid, and that's why I'm doing it. Plus, I kind of have the, what's the word? Not feedback, the results in the sense of I am growing, I am getting stronger, I am putting some size on. So, it's kind of confirming that, right? So, of course, that doesn't guarantee that my training style extrapolates to absolutely everyone. But that's not really the point, right? With your training, you want your training to accommodate you as a completely individual unit, because you have your own preferences, you have your own styles, you have your own insertions. Badass Porsche GTR. That's I'm not like a huge car guy, but honestly that would be cool. I'll save that for the future. What was I even saying? But yeah, you're you, I'm me, this other guy is him. So the point, I think there are definitely rules that can apply across the board to everybody. But, at what point are we kind of having a debate where we're saying what is, the universal law of training versus what kind of results have you gotten as an individual, and then asking other people what has worked for them, and vice versa. Because there's guys who have gotten fucking huge lifting the craziest weights you've ever seen, right? Now, it kind of cherry picking here, but if you've ever seen James Hollingshead, total freak, huge, open bodybuilder, so huge and like peeled when he gets show ready, which is nuts. But the guy's doing 200-pound dumbbells for a legitimate set. Is that necessary? Maybe not. Obviously that's pretty crazy heavy. But, are we really dogging on Ronnie Coleman for throwing the 200s around? And that's another thing that's kind of, sort of BS. Everybody kind of blames Ronnie's injuries based on his training, but it's not like it was just purely muscular overload. That's definitely an individual thing when it comes to like spinal loading and sort of hernias. But him doing a crazy ass set of heavy bench, look at him. Now that's cherry picking too, because he's a total nut. Actually, he's literally probably the guy, if we're being honest, probably in history and throughout the future. But all I'm trying to say is, don't be so swayed by hearing what one person kind of might say. And even when it comes to referencing a study, now of course studies are freaking legit. I'm definitely not trying to discredit studies. That's how basically every medical breakthrough has kind of been proven. So I'm not saying that training studies aren't applicable to our training, but are the guys who are in these studies really taking it as far and as hard as we are? Are they actually getting the proper amount of protein? If this is an FDA kind of regulated study on training, well, that FDA regulation is going to, or not regulation, but recommendation is going to say you should be eating like 50 grams of protein per day, max. And anything outside of that is not supported by, by that logic. So, are you eating 50 grams of protein per day? Are you basing everything off of, word of mouth of, other kind of just research? Now, that's kind of making me sound like I'm anti-research, which I'm just saying, lifting-wise, you really do need to get your hands on your own wheel and see what works. I'm not trying to just sift through hundreds upon hundreds of different sort of training studies to find out different ways to improve my training. What I've really been doing this entire time, which I think has worked out pretty well, is just trying new things, different amounts of volume, different styles of, whether it be like weight, pyramiding, stuff like rest pause, extra intensifiers, supersetted workouts, regular straight set workouts, when to add an intensifier, when I kind of feel like just straight sets might be better. and then, just seeing what works, right? Because at the end of the day, you're you. And as much as we might want to say, like, well, it's actually better, this study says that in 10 untrained individuals, they were able to get 15% more tricep activation in their long head because they did overhead training only versus the conventional pushdown. And it's like, well, do overhead training? Did you get a pump today? Like, are you actually even, are you more concerned with trying to improve your training? Or are you more concerned with trying to win an online argument? Right? And let's be honest, that is definitely an angle at play, right? I don't think high schools have debate clubs as such like a prominent aspect as much now. I feel like they've kind of died down. But the type of guy who would love to be in a debate club also loves to get into comment sections going back and forth about training, volume, intensity, push, pull, lower. It's like, dude, get a pump, grow, make your progress, and then try to improve your training as best you can. Because at the end of the day, that's kind of all you can do, right? So, I'm not saying, if you're a hardcore studies-based kind of guy, I'm not saying you're wrong, of course. And if you're a screw studies, bro science kind of hardcore dude, I'm not necessarily saying you're wrong either. It's just keep a more open mind. But what if I kind of boil that down to how I want to approach the rest of this off season, off season is not even the right word, just the rest of this bulk, where I'm trying to actually leverage growth. It's just to make sure I've got a lot of training variability, So that's within the constraints of I'm still going to have heavy sets where I try to push my my 10 rep PR on a lot of heavier kind of compound movements. But if I do a crazy heavy back day like yesterday, maybe next back day will be more light squeezing and burning. If I do a really heavy chest day like my last chest day, same thing. Maybe more concentrated holding, burning stuff, or really stretch leverage machines where I go a bit lighter and I really open up. Things like that. So as long as my workouts are different back to back and I can tell I'm still progressing, that's kind of all I really want to see. The scale and the mirror, those are the real judges, if we're being honest. But yeah, either way, I guess there's no one specific point. I guess the only specific point that I'm trying to say is there is no specific point. But either way, now I'm just kind of rambling. Plan for my post-workout meal. I'm just going to repeat my breakfast. Probably not so big. I don't need, let's just do 100 grams of carbs worth of the cream of rice. Same thing, 20 grams of brown sugar, some frozen blueberries, and then some chicken. About 50 grams of protein worth of 2 of the canned chickens that I had left over from my last prep. And I've got a bunch of ground beef, but it's got to be cooked. So I'm not really in the mood to sit for 15 minutes and wait for a meal. So I'm going to kind of jump straight to the chicken first. I guess I'll probably want to eat the chicken before the carbs, just because that's the less enjoyable portion of the meal, and I want to eat the treat part after. But yeah, either way, badass lift. Morning weight was 250, but I think that's just because I probably still have some food in my stomach because I ate late last night. But yeah, man, 250. How long is it going to be until 260? How long is it going to be until 270? Okay, now that's getting crazy. We'll see what happens. But yeah, plan for tomorrow. Ooh, shit. Quads tomorrow. All right, I better get a good night's rest. I want to go freaking crazy on quads. So I'll see you for that.